My greatest strength is my intuition
Okay.
and my capacity to let my heart listen when sometimes my mind uh, is overthinking too much.
Well, how do you cope with grief?
That is an ongoing journey. I find that as my grief changes and as my relationship to grief changes, the tools that I use also change. When I was in the beginning stages of grief and really in the throes of it, mostly I would just lie on the floor on my back and cry, and that is how I coped with grief. And that was literally the only thing I could do. Now, sometimes I'll meditate if I'm feeling, the pulls of it or the ache of it. Sometimes I'll actually talk to whomever I'm grieving for out loud and just have a conversation. Sometimes it's as simple as going for a walk and just getting some movement, or sitting down and journaling for a few moments and acknowledging the way I'm feeling and, who I'm feeling it for and all of those things. So I would say that it changes, but the way that I cope with it the most is by greeting it and acknowledging it and really making space for it, even when I don't want to or it's uncomfortable. Because a lot of times I've found that actually sitting with the grief, it feels like it could be too much or like it might swallow you whole, but that in fact does not happen. It may feel like it momentarily, but I like to think of it like an ocean a little bit.
Well, how about like that's grief specifically? Is there anything that you do if you're overwhelmed or anything like in addition to all those practices that you have already?
Absolutely. And some of them are pretty similar. When I am feeling really overwhelmed, the biggest tool I reach for is pausing and literally just stopping what I'm doing and taking a few minutes to do some breathing exercises. There is a particular one called box breathing, where you inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and repeat. And I find that that not only calms me, but it also focuses my mind. I am able to really kind of move forward and settle myself down.
Gotcha. Well, if something really challenges you, what then? Anything else?
Well, sometimes I cry because that is my default emotion a lot of the times. And when I feel really overwhelmed, I can feel it welling up. And instead of trying to push it away, sometimes I just let that happen and let that out for a little bit. And then I will try to move. If I'm really overwhelmed, I'll try to do some kind of movement, whether it's take a walk, whether it's just stand up from where I'm sitting and shake my body, if that is all I can manage, because sometimes even a walk might feel too overwhelming. So I just try to move a little bit, and then writing for me, that really is soothing. And I just write everything that I'm feeling, no matter how icky it feels or weird. I put it all down, and it really helps to move through it for me.
Great. Let's get into the death doula stuff. What brought you? What made you decide to become a death doula?
It wasn't one thing in particular until it was. I have had a unique relationship with death for most of my life, having experienced it at a very young age and very consistently throughout my life, and then culminating in the loss of both my parents in a period of 4 months. I had been really considering it, and then I happened to be at a meditation one day and happened to overhear someone mention the word death doula. And in less than 10 minutes, I had a conversation with the man who would become my co-founder of the wonderful virtual death doula network. The universe just sort of clicked that day and brought us into the same place where we had a brief conversation about it. We had a follow-up email and conversation the next day, and by 6 p.m. the next evening, I was signed up to become a death doula.
Why? Why is death dueling so important? What's the big draw for why do we need death doulas?
There is such an unmet need for support for people and their loved ones as they move through the transition from life to death. It can be an exceptionally overwhelming process, whether it be happening really rapidly or whether it's something that's painstakingly slow. And death doulas are available to advocate for the dying so that all of their needs and wishes are met, as well as to make sure that the family is comfortable and supported and understands what's happening so that everybody has the potential and the possibility for a good death, whatever that means to them, because that is a very personal thing.
Cool.
So I think that people don't know that there's support available for the end of life process, or even if you're not in your own end of life journey but are curious about it or concerned or confused. Our culture has really made death and dying a taboo, when in fact it is a beautiful part of the life cycle that all of us will inevitably experience. And instead of being horrified and kind of shied away from, we seek to kind of bring people closer to it and more comfortable with it.
Well, what's your favorite thing about doing this doula work?
It's a big question, but I think for me is to be able to bear witness to those aha moments when I get to witness a client reach a space in their grief where they find an opening and they find some relief, or they find a nugget of sweetness that they didn't expect to find there. And for me, I guess it's just overwhelmingly powerful and beautiful to be able to see someone heal like that. And I want to say they heal like that because all we as doulas are doing is creating a safe place and a container for someone to be able to do this really necessary and challenging work.
Well, what personal qualities do you have that helps you deal with some of the challenges and adversities that go into being a doula?
I'm not afraid of the shadow side of things. Things that some people may have a hard time talking about, I feel very comfortable with. So there's nothing that someone could come to me with that's going to make me uncomfortable or judgmental or concerned. And I am grateful that I was blessed with a really big heart. So I have compassion for this work and to do this work. And it's something that really lights me up in a beautiful way. And I consider that a gift. I see a lot of people being really afraid of death. And because of all of the experience I've had with it, I've found a way to make friends with it to the extent that I can.
Great. Switched around a little bit. Let's talk about happiness and how we define it for ourselves. How important is it? And what makes you happy? Talk happiness.
I love this. So happiness is really important to me, but it is actually not the most important. And I learned throughout my journey that I wasn't striving for happiness. I strive for unconditional contentedness. Happiness can be fleeting, but to be unconditionally content, no matter what's happening, is such a blessing. It is the gift of presence. And so while I strive for unconditional contentedness, the things that truly make me happy in this life are the little things. It's a smile. It's a sweet note from someone you care about. It's someone sending you something because it made them think of you. Just the little things that can get overlooked: a blade of grass, flower petal, a leaf blowing in the wind in the fall. Those are the things that make me really happy.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Is there anything else that you want to say to anybody that might be listening?
I just would like to urge people to give themselves a chance to really open up and be vulnerable. Again, our culture often discourages that and says that maybe getting too into things that make us vulnerable or the things that make us cry is weak. But in actuality, it is the bravest, most courageous thing you can do. And so I would just continually encourage people to connect with their hearts and connect with all the parts of themselves, even the ones that feel a little sticky, because it's all beautiful.